What kind of a person strives every day to be the best version of themselves, focused every day on being better than they were the day before? What does it mean to completely devote your life's work to the service of others? What does it take to serve humanity in a way so profound that you're willing to risk your own life to protect those who you do not even know? What level of sacrifice is required to be a guardian of truth, justice, and a protector of society? What kind of strength and skill is needed for an individual to be brave enough to enforce the laws enacted by elected officials and the voting populace to ensure our society is free from chaos and anarchy? What kind of internal fortitude is essential in a person's character to inspire them to run into danger when others are running away? What does it take for a human being to possess the emotional courage to help people in their worst and darkest moments, to provide comfort and protection to victims of violent crimes such as rape, child molest, sexual assault, and murder, in the middle of the night, on weekends, on holidays, in the scorching sun, in the pouring rain, foregoing personal time with their own families to ensure that your community is free from criminals who lurk in the streets to steal property, commit crimes, and conduct mayhem? What kind of compassion is required of a person to be present when a family is dealing with a loved one addicted to drugs, or who is suffering from mental illness, or is part of a vulnerable population and in need of professional help? What compassion and empathy is indispensable for one human being to comfort another when they're faced with tragedy or the death of a family member? What heightened alertness is mandated to respond at a moment's notice to emergency and respond in split seconds? What level of integrity do we as society require of those who we empower to protect us? What sort of sacrifices do we expect from those who we sanction to safeguard us, those who took an oath to protect and defend us? That oath they took when they swore to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution and the California Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now think about that a moment. This is a position so critically important that we swear them to an oath before they can even do the job we hire them to do. These are the members of our noble policing profession: our police officers, our deputy sheriffs, our highway patrol officers, our 911 dispatchers, records professionals, crime scene investigators, community service officers, animal control, professional staff, and all of those who serve our local police departments, our sheriff's office, our highway patrol, our state and federal law enforcement agencies. They are all members of a small segment of society who are willing to sacrifice their own personal well-being for the sanctity of others at the detriment of their own sanctity and safety, and forego their own comforts of life. These are highly skilled people from local communities. They're your neighbors. Their kids go to school with your kids. You attend the same churches. They've stepped up to perform a role that most people would never, ever want to do, and truthfully, many couldn't do. These are the dedicated professionals of our policing profession, those who hold the thin blue line to protect you and me from chaos and anarchy. They deserve to be held in high esteem, to be respected, at the very least, to be supported by those of us who rely on them every day and every night for the commitment to the safety of our local communities, so that you and I might live in peace. These are challenging times, and I don't believe for one second that the men and women of law enforcement are here by an accident. You're here for a purpose, for a reason, and you're needed in this moment in time. We're at a pivoting point in history for American policing. And we've been at pivoting points in history many times in our profession. In fact, going all the way back to the Boston Massacre before we were even a nation in 1770. Protests, demonstrations, those are in the DNA of who we are as a country. During the Boston Massacre, the British soldiers were there representing the British government, who was the ruling party at the time, and the British king. And it was the British soldiers who took the heat from the public and the rioting masses. And throughout time, we've come to realize that today, you as police officers represent government. You are the face of government. You are on the front lines. Throughout our history, we've had many pivoting points. Through the Old West, law enforcement had to transition and changed. We became better. We evolved. We became better versions of ourselves. Through the turn of the century into the 1920s, 30s, which were some of the deadliest times for the American police officer. Post-World War II, we began recruiting veterans, and that became the bedrock of what we are today. We became more uniformed and professional. We had a command structure, we were paramilitary. Even during the last 3 decades, through the 80s and 90s and the 2000s, we've seen many pivoting points in history. And there has been and will always remain to be a very high level of scrutiny for the American police officer, and rightfully so. We're the only profession granted the power to arrest somebody and take their freedoms, or even to take their life if we need to stop a threat. The only profession that's a close cousin to the American police officer is the American soldier. They protect and defend our country outside our borders, and we protect and defend our country inside our borders. And like the American soldier, you don't do this for fame or fortune or for the money. You do it because you wanted to serve mankind, and you wanted to be a part of something larger than yourselves. So where do we go today? What's this pivoting point? That's yet to be defined. My guess is our biggest challenge will be that in the area of use of force. I'm happy to say, though, that here in California, we lead the nation by virtue of Senate Bill 230 and Assembly Bill 392 passed last year. California leads the nation in the high level of use of force policies, which are mandated to include things such as de-escalation, verbal warnings, a duty to intercede if witnessing excessive force, dealing with vulnerable populations, a mandate to do first aid immediately after use of force. But every police culture is uniquely different. There's some 18,000 law enforcement agencies in our nation, with about 850,000 sworn peace officers serving America. Here in California alone, we have about 500 law enforcement agencies and some 85,000 sworn peace officers. And as a police chief, as a sheriff, we can set high-level vision, a mission, a strategic plan. We can write policies and procedures. We can hire the right people. We can promote the right leaders. We can even fire the people that need to be fired. But when it comes to police culture, it's defined by all of us. What we accept, what we don't accept, what we tolerate, what we don't tolerate. American policing is at a crossroads, and some would suggest these are horrible times to be in law enforcement. But I suggest to you that these are the best of times. You're here for a reason. You get to help define what the future of policing looks like, what it is. Ours is one of the most misunderstood professions there are, and one of the most noble professions there are. For us to transform our profession requires every individual, all 850,000 sworn peace officers across this nation, to maintain the strongest of integrity and the highest caliber of character. With such a large volume of police officers serving in America, which only represents a very small fraction of a percent of the United States population, this is a remarkably daunting task. Accountability and higher scrutiny is required, but I know we're all up for the task. Don't allow the naysayers and opinions to sway us from the important work that lays ahead of us. Don't listen to the professional athletes who, if they fumble, it's okay because it's a mistake and only a game. They don't know your job. Don't listen to the actors in Hollywood who, if they flub a line, they get to do a retake because it's just a movie or a show. They don't know your job. Even the politicians at our Capitol who enact the laws that you and I enforce, they don't seem to grasp the reality that the division our country is experiencing today is a responsibility that they too bear. But some shield themselves behind the controversy currently being aimed at the American police officer. They don't know your job, but you do. The vast majority of Americans support you. They trust you, they believe in you, and they know that you're loyal to America. Let's not let them down. But accountability works both ways. We must return to a time when the acts of criminal behavior are held accountable, not as a function of police intervention, but by a refusal of victims and communities to tolerate criminal behavior. Elected officials need to own the laws that they enact. As peace officers, we only enforce the rule of law. We don't write the law. Weakening or diminishing laws does not lessen the impact crime has on victims, and it does not excuse criminal behavior. I have grave concern for those communities who are calling to defund the police or even abolish the police. Without the police, there will be no society that has a rule of law. If there is no one to enforce the laws, then a law is merely a suggestion. I pray for better times in America. I pray the social divide we see goes away, and that we're once again galvanized as a nation, that we're all Americans first. I firmly believe that better days lay ahead, and the American police officer will continue to be the front line of peace and tranquility in our local communities. Until that time, I have every confidence that those of you in our profession will continue to serve and protect. We will continue to respond to calls for help. We'll assist those people who are in crisis. We'll help those people in their darkest hour. We'll even respond to help those who don't even like the police, because that's what you do. You are part of a noble profession, the policing profession, and you are the thin blue line. I salute you.